I have an ever-expanding list, or really just a backlog, of games I want to make a video about eventually, either because there's something I already love or there's something I'm interested in playing for one reason or another. And today is the latter, because I've been interested in checking out Atelier Ryza for a while now. Developed by Gust, the game released back in 2019, and Atelier Ryza would go on to become the best-selling entry in the series, with our heroine here getting a whole trilogy to herself that would collectively sell a grand total of 2 million copies. The game's success can be attributed to how much more it was being marketed compared to other titles in the series, but its greatly improved presentation as well as its more streamlined gameplay certainly helped. But let's not forget about our main heroine here and how, unsurprisingly, a certain part of her design also did some of the heavy lifting. I've been wanting to make a video about this game for a long while now, but up until recently, the channel was so small I was pretty nervous about how well it would perform, so with 1,300 subs and counting, I finally decided to give Atelier Ryza a shot, and guys, let me tell ya, I really should have played these games sooner. Atelier Ryza gave me a kind of really relaxing and satisfying experience I've not gotten from other RPGs. In all honesty, I had such a great time that after I finished it, I pretty much immediately bought another game in the series to play on my off time with Atelier Sophie, because I just wanted more to play. So join me while I explain to you in a lot more detail how Atelier Ryza, Ever Darkness and the Secret Hideout made me a fan of the series. The story, of course, stars Ryza as well as her friends Lint and Tao, who live in a small village on Kirkin Island, a place with more than a few taboos, one of which is going to the mainland, something Ryza and friends do not even 30 minutes in. See, Ryza's a 17-year-old girl who craves adventure and really just some way to escape the boredom of Kirkin in her daily life. So with Lent wanting to prove how strong he is and Tao joining purely out of peer pressure, they decide to sneak away using an abandoned rowboat. Along the way though, after saving the daughter of a rich merchant who's come to Kirkin named Claudia, they meet Impel and Lila, two people investigating the ancient Clint Kingdom ruins who inadvertently inspire Ryza to learn alchemy after they use it to explode the crap out of this weasel. The story of Atelier Ryza is a pretty laid-back adventure. There absolutely is something deeper going on, well with this game's subtitle being Ever Darkness and all, but what that is I won't say for those who haven't played the game before since it's not technically revealed or even properly discussed until a good ways in. For the most part though, the focus is predominantly on Ryza and her time with Lent, Tao, and Claudia as they explore more of the mainland and help around the island, and honestly I really dig the story and just the game's whole vibe. Everything about Atelier Ryza makes me feel as if I'm playing through some kind of slice-of-life fantasy anime. The story has this really nice and relaxing comfiness, with a focus on the characters just interacting and being friends. Heck, even when the game goes to darker, more real subject matter, like how early in the game it's revealed that Lent has a physically abusive, alcoholic father, it rarely dwells all that long on the negatives and it quickly takes a more positive tone. But there's still the fantasy part of the whole thing, and I gotta say Atelier Ryza's story did a really good job at getting me interested in their world. I can't fully get into it without spoilers at all, so I'll just say that while it took a little while to start fully catching my interest, I really enjoyed what the game did with the Clint Kingdom, and I'm really eager to learn more about Ryza's world. That being said, I do have two problems with the story. The first one is pretty simple, honestly, in that I think the first few hours or so of the game are a bit too slow-paced, and it takes a little too long for the gameplay to open up to you as a result, meaning Atelier Ryza can be kinda dull during its beginning. Secondly, while I do like the main cast as a whole, I do wish they focused a little bit more on Lent and Tao. While I enjoyed what they did with them, I can't help but feel like they could have spent more time on their development as characters or went a bit deeper with some of their own personal struggles. That being said though, Ryza's perfectly fine in this regard. Honestly, she was my favorite character in the game, period, primarily because I loved her personality as well as her slow but natural progression into a talented and reliable alchemist. I also just really liked her friendship with Claudia. It's not even for any complicated reason at all, I just thought it was pretty wholesome and they had some really nice moments together. As far as the presentation goes though, let me tell ya, I'm real glad this game is a photo mode, and I'm not just saying that because it made making the thumbnail easier. It's also because Atelier Ryza is really nice looking. Every major region in the game was distinct from the other, and they all looked great, with Maple Delta being one of my favorite areas in the game visually for its really pretty autumn aesthetic. Though admittedly, with there being a whole 2 parts to it, I do kinda wish it had at least one more section. I also like the character designs across the board, with Ryza's being my personal favorite, and no, it is not because of her thighs. Honestly, I'm not even a thighs man in the first place. Aside from just looking nice, I really like how much Ryza's design tells you about her character. Her outfit makes her look ready for adventure, but it's still kinda cute, which gives her a soft tomboy vibe, and the addition of those vials of whatever on her belt is a nice little signifier that she's an alchemist. Now, having said that, if I had any problems with the visuals at all though, I'd have to say it's with the monster designs. See, I'm not really a fan of how many of them are just palette swaps. Like, most enemies in the game are just slightly different variations of each other. Even the mini-bosses aren't exempt from this. Heck, it's actually worse in their case because the only change is that they're bigger, which I'm not gonna lie is kinda lame. Honestly, I think I'd be more okay with this if at the very least the mini-bosses weren't just larger versions of existing enemies, or if we had a few more unique-looking monsters. As for Atelier Ryza's soundtrack though, you won't hear any complaints from me, cause on the whole, it's really good. Aside from a few exceptions here and there, most of the songs in this game are just really pleasant to listen to and even kinda soothing. I mean, take it from a guy who sometimes has trouble with anxiety here, you really wouldn't go wrong listening to most of this soundtrack if you need to de-stress at all. Personally, I'd at the very least recommend giving the songs Hometown Island, Serene Island, and Dreaming Ruins a listen. They're all absolutely lovely, and if we're talking de-stressors, those are some of my favorites, especially Dreaming Ruins. Finally getting into Atelier Ryza's gameplay though, I want to actually start with the combat for reasons that'll become more relevant later. Now, unlike past entries, Atelier Ryza goes for an active time combat system instead of something that's purely turn-based. In battle, everyone takes their turn once their icon on the left reaches the bottom of the timeline, with everyone taking their actions regardless of who's doing what, and you only controlling one of them at a time. Anyone you're not controlling will choose their actions based on whether you're in negative or aggressive mode, something you can change at any point in battle. Negative mode will make all non-controlled party members use only normal attacks, and aggressive mode will let them use active skills by spending AP. Honestly, the AP system here is a pretty interesting idea in that each character doesn't have their own pool, and instead every party member shares one. At the start of battle, you can only have a max of 10, but that can be increased by leveling up your tactics whenever you max out your current AP pool, with AP increasing by using normal attacks and triggering action orders, which we'll get to in a moment. Now, actually leveling up your tactics gauge has two separate effects besides an increased AP pool. For starters, it'll let you hit multiple times when using a normal attack, with it capping out at 3. Aside from increased EXP, which you get if your tactics level is higher than 3, your skills will also get bonus effects, with those varying based on the skill in question. As for those action orders I mentioned earlier, these are special attacks your party members will do whenever you do something specific, like using an item, a skill, you get the idea. There's a second variety to them though, called extra orders, that can only be performed when a monster starts readying a hard-hitting special attack or when they're stunned. These function basically the same as action orders, but with the trade-off that you need enough AP to use a battle-pausing quick action to even get extra orders. Now, with all that being said, I do have one major issue with the combat system though, specifically with the items courtesy of the CC system. So here's the deal. Once you've made your first item, Impel gives Ryza this special core crystal that'll let you store a set amount of battle items in it for each character. This way she can use an item without using it up at all, but with the in-game trade-off being that each item will cost CC to use in battle, with you starting at 10 CC points, and only being able to restore it by going back to your atelier or resting. And let me tell ya, I really don't like how this works. Like, I get the sentiment, you know. This exists so that you, the player, don't have to actively make multiples of each item, which on a basic level I do sort of appreciate, but it's way too limiting. It's a system that discourages you from using the items you worked hard to craft until you need them, when honestly I'd rather just be able to use them without feeling like I need to go back to the atelier every 3 or 4 fights at most. At the end of the day though, the biggest thing that needs to be understood about the combat in this game is that it's pretty easy, albeit intentionally so, but we'll get to that. If you're wanting any kind of major challenge, barring a gargantuan difficulty spike towards the very end of the game, you'll need to play on hard mode. The game's base difficulty is built with casuals in mind. You won't need to focus too much on the combat system's depth until the difficulty spike later in the game that I'm not showing because it's genuinely massive spoilers. Honestly though, in a general sense, I don't have any real problems with the difficulty, and I'm not just saying that because I'm fine with easier experiences. In reality, it's because the combat's in service to what may as well be the actual meat of the game, the crafting, and it's by far my favorite aspect of Atelier Ryza. As an alchemist, Ryza can take materials from the environment or defeated enemies. From there, you can use them to make really any number of things. Like, while shops do exist for buying materials or equipment, you don't need to use them in the slightest, because with alchemy, the only limit to what you can make is what recipes you've unlocked, what you have on you, and your alchemy level. There's a lot to keep in mind with crafting. The quality of what you're making, whatever effects you can get from material loops, the traits you can get from the materials used. It's a lot and I'm not going to bore you with all of the specifics. But let me tell you, crafting in Atelier Ryza is incredibly fun and just as satisfying for me. I constantly felt like I was making some kind of tangible and meaningful progress in some way. Weapons and armor were constantly getting better, stats were always going up for the party as a result, and my loadout of items was always improving. And it feels great because I know that I'm the one who made those things. None of them were bought in a shop. Honestly, I loved crafting so much, I even went out of my way to do all of the side quests just because it gave me more of an excuse to make things. Actually, on the note of the side quests, I gotta say I really like them. Gameplay-wise, they're generally pretty short and nothing special at all, but story-wise, they're kinda nice, and each island resident's quest line will influence or be relevant for another residence, which was really cool. It makes Kirkin feel more alive and lived in, which is a really nice touch. That being said, even if you don't care about the story aspects, you should at the very least do the ones that get you access to these clues that you can follow to find secret treasure chests that can have items, new recipes, and even permanent CC increases for combat, which are an alright enough bandage for how limiting that system is. Back to the main point though, I feel confident in saying that Atelier Ryza has one of, if not my personal favorite crafting systems ever. I love trying to raise the quality the highest I can in whatever I'm making, and even just trying to get the most out of it I can. The whole process just feels great, and I love how much there is to consider. Heck, the game even has ways to alleviate some of the tediousness of crafting with rebuilding, which allows you to make any item you've crafted better at the cost of materials like usual and gems that can be gotten from breaking down items. Like, in a general sense, I enjoyed or even really liked everything about Atelier Ryza, but this is single-handedly what made me absolutely fall in love with this game and made me really want to play more Atelier games. I mean, honestly, I'm not really sure what more there is to say for this outro. Atelier Ryza is a great game that, frankly, I kinda wish I played sooner. Playing an RPG this relaxing was a really unique and great change of pace for me, and I cannot tell you how much I lost track of time playing this game. There were multiple times where I'd be playing for what felt like 15 to 20 minutes, when in reality, I was playing for about an hour. And to be completely honest, I think that sums up how much fun I had with Atelier Ryza pretty much perfectly. Any game that can make you lose track of time that much because you're just that invested is a sign that it's a game you love, and the best part for me is that there's apparently like 25 entries in this series, and I'm already really liking Atelier Sophie. I don't know when I'll cover Ryza's sequels at all, but rest assured it will happen eventually, because from my understanding, Ryza 2 is even better than this one, which has me very excited. Until then though, thank you all for watching, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I hope you all have a nice day.